Let's go through this frame by frame and find all the goodies that you might have overlooked. Spoiler warning in case any of those goodies that I noticed were not meant to be noticed. Let's get started.
This thing on? Hey, Miss Potts. If you find this recording, don't feel bad about this. Part of the journey is the end.
Okay, this trailer opens with Tony Stark recording this depressing away message for Pepper Potts. He's stranded on the Guardian ship. Now, this ship is actually called the Benatar, by the way. It's not the Milano. The Milano crashed in the first Guardians. The Benatar was the ship that the Guardians used to get to Titan, and presumably it still works. So it looks like Tony and Nebula used that to try to return to Earth. Now, Tony using his Iron Man helmet to record this farewell to Pepper Potts feels kind of like a parallel to that moment in the trailer for Iron Man 2. Remember when Pepper kissed the helmet?
Okay, give me a smooch for good luck. I might not make it back.
Now, this isn't exactly the same Iron Man helmet, but you get the idea, right? Like here again, Tony might not make it back, and he's using his fetched good luck charm to say this little prayer. But I gotta say, what is it about lonely spacemen talking to scarred helmets? Honestly, at first I thought Tony had kind of lost his mind and started calling his helmet Mrs. Potts. You know, it's kind of like when Homer recreated Marge out of a bush. Kiss your helmet wife, Tony, kiss her. Also, look closely at this shot of the Benatar. Those definitely look like the wings of a bird, right? The way it crosses over that star, that's so cinematic and pretty. To me, it's almost like what you would see if you were dying in the desert with vultures or buzzards flying across the sun over you, waiting for you to finally croak. I've never been in this situation myself, but you can relate. Either way, this imagery is just so very bleak here on so many levels. Let's move on.
Just for the record, being adrift in space with zero promise of rescue is more fun than it sounds. Food and water ran out 4 days ago. Oxygen will run out tomorrow morning. That'll be it.
Okay, Stark explains the dilemma, saying that he has been without food or water for 4 days, which is actually exactly when your body would start to die from dehydration in real life. Now, we can also assume that this means the movie will not begin with a 10-year time jump as we initially suspected it might, though I suppose it's possible that Tony could be in a different point of the timeline from the other characters. Actually, I have some more timeline-related thoughts later. Stark believes that he has zero promise of rescue, but obviously that's not how it's gonna end for him, right? So who could save him? Now, there's always Captain Marvel, who we just learned can fly through space and kick all kinds of ass. Though I guess we have no idea where she is in 2018 or how she would know where Stark is, or even who he is. Of course, Thor could help. His new fancy weapon Stormbreaker has the power of the Bifrost, which allows him to teleport anywhere. Though again, it might be kind of hard for him to find the Benatar if it's adrift in space. There are also characters like Kraglin from the Guardians movies. He's definitely more familiar with the Benatar ship, as well as Valkyrie, Korg, and the other Asgardians who escaped from that attack at the beginning of Infinity War. But one interesting possibility could have just been told to us by Tony Stark himself if you were listening closely.
Just for the record, being adrift in space with zero promise of rescue is more fun than it sounds.
Rescue is actually the name Pepper Potts goes by when she wears her own Iron Man armor. During a run in the comics for a brief period when Tony goes underground, we have actually seen some set photos of Gwyneth Paltrow in armor, perhaps confirming this. Maybe Pepper's rescue armor and Tony's nanotech armor have like some kind of GPS, find my friend, locator function. We'll see. On to the next clip.
When I drift off, I will dream about you. It's always you.
Okay, Tony leaves Pepper with this sweet goodbye and turns off the helmet, probably to save battery power. But look closely at that eyepiece. I'm pretty sure that that is the mystery extreme close-up image that the Russo brothers tweeted out a few months back, Iron Man's eye. So while I could see this whole scene as not being in the final cut of the movie, like maybe it's just an emotional scene that the Russos shot for this trailer, I do think that the farewell message projected from this eyepiece will play an important role in the endgame of Endgame. Also, notice how Tony moves his thumb over the eye, seemingly caressing it. Kiss her. Or maybe he's like wiping away a tear, like Pepper's tear, or maybe Cap's tear, or my tear. Let's move on.
Thanos did Exactly what he said he was gonna do.
Okay, here we check in with Thanos, that maddest of titans, in his agrarian retirement. This farm that we saw him resting on in the final image of Infinity War, we now know is actually a planet that the directors refer to as Titan 2. Kind of Thanos' dream version of what he wanted his home planet Titan to be. He has hung up his armor to make this kind of scarecrow. Actually, if you looked closely in Infinity War, you could actually see this in the corner of that last shot. And it's a reference to how Thanos does this in the Infinity Gauntlet comics when he kind of retires from the war and decides to be a farmer. Now, we only see Thanos in this one shot. Here, his fingers are grazing the plant life of his farm. You might recognize the framing of this kind of shot from a similar memorable image in the movie Gladiator. That's when Maximus returns home from his war to his farm. You can see Thanos is kind of in a similar position, right? He's a warrior come home. But the way Maximus was, Thanos is left with ashes of his family. It's hard to tell, but it kind of looks like Thanos is wearing the gauntlet here, almost like the charred, melted thing has been fused to his arm. Like it's no longer much of a deadly weapon that he wields, but really a scar that he has to bear on his body. Next clip.
He wiped out 50% of all living creatures.
Next, we see this shot of the Avengers facility in upstate New York. Now, comparing this to the wide shots of the facility in past films, it looks like the place has fallen into a bit of disrepair, right? Like the grass looks a bit overgrown, the building facade has gotten a little grimy. Again, we don't know exactly how long it's been since the snap, but this is one of the few shots in the trailer that shows us the outside world impact after the snap. So, you know, pour one out for Tony Stark's groundskeepers. And I guess for Cap's beard, another snap victim. Bruce Banner reviews the faces of missing friends, and this reminds me a lot of that one panel in the Infinity Gauntlet comic when Cap mourns a video screen filled with the fallen heroes after Thanos' snap. Though I would definitely miss Peter Parker a lot more than some of those weirdos. But look closely at that screen. The red letters there say missing. So maybe they have a separate category for people they know have faded away, and then this category for people that they aren't sure about. And before that image on the far right switches to Peter Parker, you can see Shuri, Black Panther's sister. So Scott Lang, we know, is missing in the quantum realm, more on that later. And Peter Parker would probably be seen as missing because I don't think anyone actually saw him sneaking aboard Ebony Maw's ship. But Shuri's a more interesting story. The last time we saw her, she was lying on the floor after Corvus Glaive struck her, but she definitely didn't seem dead. She would have gotten a much bigger moment if she really died. So why would Shuri be missing? Has Wakanda as a nation receded from the world stage once more, making whereabouts of all their citizens kind of a mystery? Did Shuri go underground just to mourn her brother? Or does she go underground to work on some new secret weapon to come back and strike Thanos? I just love Bruce's reaction here, considering just a second ago he found out that Spider-Man and Ant-Man existed at all.
Who's Scott?
Ant-Man.
There's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man?
I'm sorry, bro, you'll never meet them. Moving on.
We lost. All of us. We lost friends. We lost family. We lost a part of ourselves.
Okay, after another shot of the vacant Avengers HQ, we see Thor, fuming in grief. And note that he still has that eye implant that Rocket gave him in Infinity War. And then we're back again on the Benatar, where we see that Stark isn't actually alone. Nebula, left with him on Titan at the end of Infinity War, comforts him, resting her hand on his shoulder. I guess her stages of grief have finally moved on from anger to depression. Then we get one of the biggest reveals of this trailer, Hawkeye. He appears to be in Japan here. He's got gauntlets, he's got a katana. This seems to be the Ronin incarnation of his character from the comics. The Ronin is a master samurai, a lone warrior. Hawkeye takes on this character at some point. He fights a Yakuza, he does a bunch of cool stuff. But notice what Cap's voiceover says the moment before we see Clint.
We lost family.
Ugh, this could be hinting at the reason Clint has run off to this dark path in Japan. Perhaps he lost his entire family in the dusting. Like Hawkeye does lose his family in the Ultimate Comics, it kind of sends him on a very, very dark storyline. Now, I don't mean to wish for all 4 of Hawkeye's family members to disappear, but I'll just say this. In the HBO series The Leftovers, which deals with a Rapture-style event, the coolest character in it is a woman whose entire family disappears. And fun fact, she's actually the same actress who plays Proxima Midnight. But let's move on to the next clip.
This is the fight of our lives.
This is gonna work, Steve.
I know it is. Because I don't know what I'm gonna do if it doesn't.
Okay, in this segment, we see Cap and Nat, with Cap back in what looks like the Winter Soldier era suit, and we see that he's holding his old compass. Now, this was the one given to him by Peggy Carter in the first Captain America movie, the one that he had with him when his plane went down. Now, this compass, of course, is a symbol for Cap's unwavering moral character, always pointed in the right, noble direction. But notice how this compass is showing that he's facing northeast. That's actually around the same heading that we saw in the old Quinjet cockpit. in the recent Captain Marvel trailer. That was 20.6 degrees, which is really more around northeast. Now, this could just be a coincidence. Or maybe this captain is following in the footsteps of another ageless captain taken out of her time on a mission that took her northeast. Maybe on a compass heading to a certain coordinate in the polar ice caps where a famous Cap's plane went down. Like, I'm not sure if Cap and Natalie's mission here, the mission that has to work, would require a turn to his crash site in the ice, or if it has any connection to Captain Marvel. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but let's move on to the title reveal. So Avengers Endgame it is. The title of this movie being Endgame has several implications. First, if you watch our videos, you probably know it as the phrase spoken by Doctor Strange to Tony Stark right after Strange surrendered the Time Stone to Thanos.
We're in the Endgame now.
Also, Endgame was a phrase mentioned by Tony Stark in Age of Ultron.
That up there, that's the Endgame.
And a fun fact, early last summer, Endgame was accidentally leaked as the title of the movie by a cinematographer on his online resume, but it was quickly and quietly changed. Around this time, the Russo brothers shot down Endgame as a title, but I guess they technically weren't lying if you consider Endgame as one word, not two. But what does Endgame mean? Well, it's a chess term, meaning that final phase of the game in which both sides start making strategic sacrifices of valuable pieces that they really want, but they do it so that they can eventually corner their opponent's king to checkmate. They might have to sacrifice their queen, or a bishop, or a knight, or a time stone. Doctor Strange looked forward in time at 14,605 different timelines and outcomes, and this one was the end game that he foresaw. But I know, that's still not that specific, right? I've made a couple videos on what exactly Doctor Strange's plan could be, and I'll likely make several more now. But for now, let's look at this imagery. From ashes and broken pieces, one solid Avengers A assembles. You could look at this as the reverse motion of when someone dusts away, as if someone is using the Time Stone to reverse the Avengers fading away into dust. But note that the logo still appears ashy and scarred. It's not fully whole again. To me, this kind of signals that the effects of Thanos' snap can be remedied, but not completely undone. Like, there's always gonna be scar tissue. Also, notice this big ring that goes around it. It's ghostly, it's spinning. Remember, in the promo imagery for Infinity War, there was also a big ring, which later looked a lot like those forges of Nidavellir that Thor used to create Stormbreaker, the God Killer weapon. So does this ring represent a God Killer weapon of a different kind? Like maybe a wormhole or a portal. Finally, there's the way that the word Avengers transitions from being translucent to a more solid state. Is there any parallel here with the phase shifting of the quantum realm, seen with characters like Ghost from Ant-Man the Wasp, who transitioned in and out of a translucent phase? Like, I know it sounds like I'm reaching with this imagery here, but you know what? The quantum realm has been confirmed as important to this movie's plot, as seen in this final clip.
Hi, is anyone home? This is Scott Lang. We met a few years ago at the airport in Germany. I got really big.
Is this an old message?
Ant-Man, I know you know that.
It's the front door.
That's me. Can you buzz me in?
Okay, so somehow Scott Lang survived and escaped being stuck in the quantum realm, where we last saw him in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Note that he has his ex-con security van, which actually contained the quantum tunnel device. So my immediate question was, why does Cap think this is an old message? Is he just like an old grandpa yelling at a FaceTime, "Is this a voicemail?" But it turns out, egg on my ageist face. Look at the upper left corner of this video message. You can definitely see the word archive. And if you look even closer next to it and kind of squint your eyes, some are saying there's a year there, 1983. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see. Cap and Black Widow's bewilderment here isn't at seeing a missing hero show up finally. It's that this isn't the front door of the facility at this moment. This is a old archive video, and somehow Scott is showing up in it, the way Nicolas Cage shows up in old Civil War photos. So we have explored the quantum realm in lots of videos. Go watch all of them, please. But one detail we learned from the recent post-credit scene is that it contains time vortexes.
Don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
So has Scott done exactly that? Gotten all stuck into a time vortex in the quantum realm and then somehow spit back out in the early 80s? Like, I suppose he would have tried to go to Avengers HQ, and I suppose Scott could be dense enough to not realize America was 35 years earlier and maybe just assume the Avengers would open the door. Now, years before Tony Stark converted this facility into Avengers HQ, this was an old Stark building. According to Hank Pym in the first Ant-Man, when he sent Scott to break into it and steal that device.
It's currently collecting dust in one of Howard Stark's old storage facilities in upstate New York.
Hey, didn't you say this was some old warehouse? It's not! You son of a bitch!
So maybe now Scott has made kind of a reverse mistake. In some earlier time, and the old security cameras recorded him trying to find them, but no one was there to answer, and it just got stored in the archives for years and years and years. Until present day Captain America and Natalie realized that time travel through the time vortexes of the quantum realm is the way they can defeat Thanos. Yep, this could just be all the Avengers crammed into Scott Lang's time traveling mystery machine. Kind of like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. They'll rip off that gauntlet like a ghost sheet off an old man Thanos.
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for that time-meddling Ant-Man.
Yeah, time travel is a really bonkers concept, folks, and it tends to get really messy. There's all kinds of directions this could go. But as we look into this more and more deeply, my question for you right now is, which do you think is more likely? That Scott has gone back in time, or that Scott could have phase shifted into a different parallel reality, where the Avengers might just not be home? Comment down below with your thoughts, and hold on to your butts, because we're gonna be talking about this a lot over the coming months. Subscribe to New Rockstars for all the stuff you missed and deeper theories related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Avengers Endgame.